Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for spending your Memorial Day with us. I'm going to slow things down here for just a minute while we get our airplanes in formation. But I'd like to say that on behalf of the Independence State Airport Support Group, and as proclaimed by the cities of Monmouth and Independence, we welcome you. I'm Danny Jaffer, and I'm your Master of Ceremonies. 2015 marks the 22nd year for the Memorial Day Aviator Tribute. It was started in 1994 to honor past Oregon pilots and aviators, civilian and military, and recognize their service to our state and to our country. Over the past 21 years, this program has honored over 300 aviators, each recognized with a short remembrance of their life story and the family presented with a flag flown over our nation's capital. Before we start, I would like to say that it's an honor and a privilege again to have been asked to be the MC for this event. Long before I embarked on my military flying career, I took my very first airplane ride here at this airport as payment for washing windows and pumping gas into Palms to Pines Air Race airplanes. For any of those out there that remember the Palms to Pines Air Race. That was the second largest women's air race in the country after the Powder Puff Derby. It used to end right here in Independence. I took my first flying lesson here. I also did my first solo here and eventually embarked on my naval flying career. So this is a special place for me, and I know it is for many others. I'd also like to say thank you and acknowledge the support and work of the Independence State Airport Support Group. They're the sponsors of this event. And also the local chapter of the Experimental Aircraft Association and my fellow tribute committee members, and particularly Corresponding Secretary Margaret Cleveland. The event would not be what it is without their help and without their dedication and hard work. So thank you all that have helped put this together and everything you've done to make this tribute happen. We'll begin our ceremony with the staffing of the flag. The duty of raising the national flag today is covered by the Civil Air Patrol cadets. At the flag staff on the beacon, the cadets have volunteered to perform the ceremony. And now I'd like the audience to rise, please.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Now, please join the local Boy Scouts as they lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Scout hand salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Forward, march.
formation flying over today is 3 local Piper Cubs and a BT-13 pilot trainer, World War II pilot trainer. The Reverend Michael Parks, himself a pilot, of the First Baptist Church in Independence, is here to provide today's invocation. Reverend Parks.
Would you join me for prayer? Our Father, we thank you for this country, for freedom. We thank you for the sacrifice of those who gave their lives to make that freedom possible. As has been said, all gave some, but some gave all. We thank you, Lord, for this country. We love this country. And we ask you, Lord, to bless this time as we come to honor and to remember. We thank you for the servicemen and women standing here today who gave so much to make that possible. And we think today, our Father, of those serving our country here, overseas, many of them in harm's way. We ask you to protect and to watch over them and to be with them and their families and to bring them home safely. And so, dear God, as we come, we commit this time to you, and we do so in the name of the one who said, "Greater love hath no man than he gave his life for his friends," the Lord Jesus. And we give you thanks. Amen.
Please take your seats. Thank you, Cap Cadets, Mr. Stephen Springer, Scouts, and Reverend Parks. Providing today's Memorial Day welcome on behalf of the state of Oregon, we are honored to have Oregon State Representative from the 20th District, Mr. Paul Evans. An Oregonian his entire life, Paul was raised in Monmouth and graduated from Central High School. At age 18, he was elected as a Monmouth City Councilor, becoming one of the youngest elected municipal council members in the nation. He graduated from Western Oregon State College, now Western Oregon University, and in 1992 entered the Air Force. Following 4 years of active service, serving with the 728th Air Control Squadron, Paul earned his master's degree at Oregon State University. He later was elected mayor of Monmouth, taught at Western Oregon University and Oregon State University, and has volunteered with Polk County Fire Department. Shortly after the 2001 terrorist attacks, Captain Evans was recalled to active duty as a member of the Oregon Air National Guard. Upon his return from a second tour in Afghanistan, Paul joined the policy staff of Governor Ted Kulongoski, serving as senior advisor for emergency management, military, and veterans affairs. Paul continues to teach as a full-time speech communications professor at Chemeketa Community College. On January 12th of this year, Paul Evans was sworn in as Oregon House Representative for District 20. And I just want to say, hey, Air Force, Navy's got something for you. Please join me in welcoming my friend and locally grown talent, Representative Paul Evans.
Thank you. The comb thing is that even when I never could grow hair as nice as Danny has. And I've always teased him about the fact I can't grow a mustache. It's just one of those things. But today we're here at Memorial Day. And as I was trying to figure out what to do, what to say in order to welcome folks for Memorial Day, I did what I normally do. I look at history. And depending on who you talk to in history, it started in 1866 in New York. And of course, not to be outdone, Virginia says it started in 1868 at Arlington, Decoration Day. Folks recognized that with the sacrifices made during the Civil War, 642,000 perished in battle, that something had to be done, something had to be set aside to recognize the passing and to make sure that such sacrifices are never forgotten by future generations. You know, it's funny, most of us think that Memorial Day has actually been a federal holiday since then. It actually wasn't until 1971 that there was a federal holiday that designated the last Monday. I emphasize that because for generations, Memorial Day was a custom, it was a tradition. It was something that communities did in their own way. I can think of nothing more personal, more Independence, Monmouth, Polk County-ish than the way we celebrate Memorial Day here and have for 22 years, thanks to Andy and all the folks that originally started this Memorial Day celebration. In terms of welcome, I want to ask us to do really only three things. The first is to honor what today is about. It's to remember. Sometimes those memories aren't terribly fun. Sometimes they aren't easy to have. I'm not going to ask how many of you have members that served or directly served in the armed forces, but I'm pretty sure most of you have. Most of you have some connection. During a time of war like we are right now, still, in Afghanistan and around the globe, it's important to remember the sacrifices of generations that came before. Second thing I'm going to ask you to do as we go throughout this ceremony is to recognize what it is to be an American right now, to have the opportunities. Sometimes we get frustrated with our government. Sometimes we get frustrated with the way things seem to be going. And yet we live in the only country on the planet where we have absolute control over our destiny. We can decide what we're going to do. We can decide what tomorrow is going to look like. Sometimes that means coming together and working together. The last R I want us to think about today is renewal. Memorial Days come. They pass. Many of us can remember a lot of them in our history. But what are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do to make sure that we use today's recognition of the sacrifices made, of the memories, of the loved and the lost? What are we going to do tomorrow to renew our faith in this community, this nation, this state? Thank you for coming today and sharing your Memorial Day with us. And on behalf of the state of Oregon, I'm grateful that you made time today to set aside the opportunities of barbecues and other things, at least long enough to reflect, to remember, and to renew. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Evans. For today's tribute to aviators, I'd like to introduce Colonel Paul Disney, U.S. Army, retired. First commissioning as a field artillery officer in 1981, Paul entered Army flight training, earned his wings, and was assigned to Germany as an Aero Scout section leader and attack helicopter company commander. He followed that tour as an assistant professor of military science at the University of Colorado. He served as an air cavalry troop commander in Korea and later served a tour with the Navy as an air operations officer and deployed in USS Peleliu to Somalia for Operation Restore Hope. He commanded the 2nd Battalion Air Assault in Hawaii, served as Director of Plans and Policy at Fort Monroe, Virginia, and served as Director of Operations, Joint Task Force North, U.S. Northern Command, Fort Bliss, Texas. His final assignment brought him here to Oregon as Senior Army Advisor for the Oregon National Guard. Colonel Disney currently teaches at Western Oregon University as a professor of business management. He and his wife, Kathleen, and their family reside in Dallas. Please join me in welcoming Colonel Paul Disney.
Well, it's really good to be here today. To be among what I consider my people, fellow aviators. As the saying goes, birds of a feather. But my wife Kathleen is here today, a naval aviator, gave this talk last year, so this is going to be a tough act to follow. As well as being an instructor pilot for the Navy, Kathleen flew combat resupply missions in the CH-46 Sea Knight helicopter during the first Gulf War. Please join me in thanking her for her service. Thank you. Now I can do no wrong for at least a week. As you may have already noticed, this print over here to my left, it's a tradition at the Air Force's Air War College located in Montgomery, Alabama, where every year they commission an artist for a class print. And this particular print was commissioned for the graduating class of 2002. This print represents what they call the annual gathering of Eagles, where they invite some of the most noted aviators in our country to the Air War College to provide inspiration to the graduating class. Because of the tragic events of 9/11 that occurred during this class, they renamed the print that year from the Gathering of Eagles to the Defenders of Freedom. They also had an eagle painted in the center of the print, the symbol of American air power, for the first time that year. I would like to mention just a few of the eagles whose picture, aircraft, nose art, and signatures are on this print. Lee Archer Jr. was present that day at the Air War College. He is the only confirmed ace of the famed Tuskegee Airmen, and as many of you are probably familiar, the Tuskegee Airmen are a group of African American pilots who never lost an Allied bomber to enemy air action in over 200 escort missions. Florine, is somebody? Oh. Florine Miller Watson was also present that day. She was only 25 women, or one of 25 women, selected for the original Women's Air Force service pilots, better known as the WASPs. She was the first commander of the WASP at Love Field, Texas, and she flew over 60 different aircraft types, including almost every kind of twin and four-engine bomber, training, cargo, and pursuit aircraft used by the Army Air Forces. Serving as a pioneer test pilot, she tested radar equipment in 1944 prior to its operational uses overseas. Though it took 33 years for the women pilots of World War II to be militarized, in 1977, over 1,000 WASP were recognized with an honorable discharge as veterans of the armed forces. We have come a long way, haven't we, Kathleen? I would like to pay particular attention to one of the Eagles, a fellow helicopter pilot by the name of Mike Novosel, the only Medal of Honor recipient among this group. 26 years before receiving the Medal of Honor for his actions in Vietnam, Michael J. Novosel flew his first combat mission as a U.S. Army Air Corps B-29 pilot during World War II. When the Japanese surrendered aboard the battleship Missouri, he piloted one of nearly 500 B-29s that flew over the ceremony. After the war, he commanded the 99th Bombardment Squadron until its deactivation in 1947, after which he became a B-29 test pilot at Eglin Air Force Base. He left active duty in 1949 and went into the Air Force Reserve. When hostilities broke out in Vietnam, Lieutenant Colonel Novosel, then a pilot for Southern Airways, wanted to return to combat flying. However, due to an overage of lieutenant colonels, the Air Force was unable to accept him. Determined to do his part in Southeast Asia, he joined the Army as a warrant officer and began flying helicopters. On 2 October 1969, during his second Vietnam tour as a dust-off pilot, Chief Warrant Officer Novosel was flying for the 82nd Medevac Detachment near Cambodia's enemy-dominated Parrots Beak region when he received word that wounded South Vietnamese soldiers were pinned down in an enemy-controlled area. Novosel immediately headed for the location, only to be met by intense ground fire, which forced him away a total of 6 times. His last extraction, he hovered backwards into a barrage of enemy fire. He hovered backwards into this barrage of enemy fire to keep as much of the airframe as possible between his crew and the enemy. Just as a wounded soldier was being pulled on board, an enemy soldier stood up in the grass 30 yards in front of the ship and fired his AK-47 directly at Novosel. Hit by shrapnel and plexiglass in his right hand and leg, he momentarily lost control, but he was able to fly the wounded to safety. In all, Novosel and his crew saved 29 soldiers during this mission, ended their day after totaling 11 hours in the air. At the age of 48, he became the Army's oldest Medal of Honor recipient in the Vietnam War. During 2 Vietnam tours, he evacuated more than 5,500 wounded individuals and became known as Dean of the Dust Offers. Upon his retirement in February 1985, he was the last active duty military aviator on flying status who had seen combat duty in World War II. I had the great honor to meet Mike Novosel when my aviation brigade, 10th Mountain Division, located in Fort Drum, New York, invited him to be the guest speaker at our annual aviation ball. I will never forget how he looked that day in his dress white uniform with the Medal of Honor worn around his neck. He was the most humble, down-to-earth person I had ever met. He spoke to every one of our young aviators, inspired them to do great things. He was a shining example of selfless service. Mike passed away in 2005. I know there are many military veterans, military families, and aviators in the audience today, and I want to close by saying thank you for your service. May you always have clear skies and tailwinds. Please feel free to come by and take a look closer at the Defenders of Freedom print over here to my left. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel Disney. The Pilot Memorial Wreath, given in tribute to all pilots past and present, is provided by the Oregon Pines chapter of the 99s. The 99s is an international organization of women pilots founded in 1929 with Amelia Earhart as its first president. The wreath will be placed by squadron members of the Oregon wing of Civil Air Patrol cadets. And cadets, I think perhaps bringing it down the center aisle is probably going to work a little better this time. Civil Air Patrol's mission is to provide assistance to the community with emergency services, aerospace education, and the CAP Cadet program. The CAP Cadets spent time learning about the greater world of aviation, assisting senior CAP members with community assistance, and providing a great and safe venue for young people to become involved in aviation and community service. Thank you, CAP Cadets. Today we honor the memory of Oregon aviators who have made their last takeoff and flown on in the past year with a presentation of flags to their family members. We'll give it just a minute. I like to watch airplanes as much as the next guy. The flags provided by Congressman Kurt Schrader of the 5th Congressional District, which includes this area, were flown over our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. Presenting the flags will be the Fleet Reserve Association of the United States Navy. These heirloom flags have been carefully refolded to their proper presentation form by Fleet Reserve family members. As I read the names, the presentations will be made to the family members by retired Naval Flight Officer Bob Zaffron with the assistance of Cap Cadets. As we present the bios of the honorees, you will note their diverse and varied backgrounds, yet see that all were united by their desire to reach for the sky and take flight and, as Gillespie said, escape the surly bonds of earth. As I read the names and bios, we ask you please hold your applause until the last flag has been presented. Brigadier General Starl C. Austin, Jr., September 1920 to January 2015. Army aviator, Air Force pilot. Born in Condon, Oregon. Graduated Salem High School in 1938. In 1941, enlisted in the Army Air Corps and was accepted into flight school. Flew 58 missions in the P-47 Thunderbolt, including air support for the Battle of the Bulge. After VE Day, he married his sweetheart, Jacqueline, whom he had met while picking strawberries. Recalled to active duty for the Korean War. Joined the Oregon Air National Guard in 1953, commanding the 142nd Fighter Interceptor Group. Assigned to the Oregon Military Department headquarters in 1958. In 1973, became the first Air National Guard officer to be appointed Deputy Adjutant General of Oregon. Retiring in 1981, he was appointed by Governor Atiyeh as Director of the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs. In 1984, he again retired, but remained an active volunteer. Enjoyed reading airplane magazines and doting on his two grandsons. His true bliss was flying, and in 2007, he was inducted in the Oregon Aviation Hall of Honor. Survived by his wife of 69 years, 2 sons, 2 grandsons, and 1 brother. Lieutenant Colonel Florencio Phil Barrios, Jr., May 1938 to September 2014, Air Force pilot. Born in Manila, Republic of the Philippines. Completed high school at Ateneo de Manila at age 15. Graduated Parks Air College of St. Louis, Illinois, with a degree in aeronautics. In 1959, entered the U.S. Air Force. A decorated fighter pilot, he spent extensive flying time in the F-4 Phantom and F-111 Aardvark as a combat pilot and instructor. Deployed for 3 tours to Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War. He met his wife, Cheryl, while stationed at Mountain Home Air Force Base. Joint Air Liaison Officer with U.S. Army and other forward forces during Desert Storm. Retired in 1991 and moved his family to Salem. Actively involved in the community, dedicating much time to Salem's youth soccer. To his players, he was known as Coach Barrios, Colonel Barrios, or simply Sir. Not only was the F-4 his favorite fighter jet, it also embodied the 4 loves of his life: flying, family, friends, and food. Survived by his wife Cheryl, 2 sons, and 4 grandchildren. Joe C. Bello, April 1925 to June 2014, commercial pilot. Born in Salem, worked for the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC. At the age of 16, he joined the Army Air Corps and served as air crew in India, where he flew the hump. This is where he got his passion for flying. Upon returning to the States, he earned his commercial pilot's license and started working for Ace Flying Service, Farm Air, and Kreitzberg, doing crop dusting in Oregon and Canada. Started his own business building microwave towers, traveling the United States and several countries installing them. He also started Bello Steel Warehouse, now Airport Steel. He helped transport the world-famous Hughes HK-1 Hercules flying boat, also known as the Spruce Goose, from Portland to its present home at the Evergreen Air Museum. Joe belonged to the Veterans of Underage Military Service, Disabled American Veterans, and other veterans organizations. Survived by his wife, 3 sons, his sister, numerous grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Lauren Grove Boston, December 1923 to November 2014, Army aviator and private pilot. Born on his great-grandfather's donation land claim farm in Quinniby, north of Salem. I had to look that one up. During the Great Depression, he was sent out to work for room and board on a farm at the age of 14, and at 16, he went to work in a cannery. Attended Salem High School, walking from Kaiser. Left to join the Army Air Force in World War II, earning his wings in May of 1945. While in the service, he met and married Margaret. Later, worked for United Airlines as a reservations chief. He loved the mountains and backcountry of Oregon and enjoyed flying his Piper Cherokee throughout the West. Growing up knowing hunger, he was a faithful worker and contributor to the Kaiser Food Bank. He is survived by 2 daughters, 3 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, and his longtime companion Shirley and family. George Leslie Bryce. October 1921 to August 2014. Army Air Corps Navigator. Born in Ferndale, California at Hotel Ivanhoe, owned by his grandparents. And was taken under his grandfather's wing following the death of his father when he was 15. He began college at the University of California, Davis. Before completing his education, enlisted in the Army Air Corps as a navigator, flying 32 missions during World War II. Received the Distinguished Flying Cross and Air Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster. Met and married wife Grace in 1945. Worked as a marine adjuster in downtown Portland until his retirement. His yard and garden were always his passion. Throughout his life, had a great interest in both growing his own and knowing where to purchase the best fruits and vegetables. Survived by son Mount, daughter Lisa, 2 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren. Gene Raymond Burns, July 1927, February 2015, private pilot. Born in Longview, Washington, graduated Klamath Union High School, attended Oregon State College, now OSU, in 1944, where he joined ROTC. Joined the Marines in 1945 and was discharged in 1946. Began working for his father at Asphalt Paving Company in 1947 and eventually ran the company. Returned to OSU in the early 70s to complete his degree and remained a true Beaver believer. Active in many civic organizations, he was a past Commodore of the Klamath Yacht Club, served as Commandant of the Crater Lake Detachment of the Marine Corps League, and manager of Shrine Drum Corps. Donated over 10 gallons of blood during his lifetime. A private pilot, he enjoyed travel. His deepest pursuit was Model A Fords, survived by his wife Dolores, 3 children, 4 stepchildren, 5 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. George K. Ken Elwood, July 1925 to May 2014, private pilot. Born in Cunningham, Kansas, and moved with the family to Hermiston, where they raised turkeys and ran a Richfield gas station. Developed an early interest in airplanes. Joined the Navy in 1943 and served as a gunner's mate. Stationed near Pensacola, Florida, he met Beatrice, who became his wife in April 1945, and then they settled in Eastern Oregon. Moved the family to Corvallis in 1956 so he could attend Oregon State University. Earned a degree in industrial arts and became a high school shop teacher. Taught his sons how to build and fly model airplanes. When the boys left home, he began building full-sized airplanes, his favorite being the Starduster II. He and Bee flew the open cockpit Starduster to Alaska and back. Retired from teaching and then worked for CH-2M Hill, and then retired again, allowing more time for flying and volunteering at the Evergreen Aviation Space Museum, where he too proudly worked on the famous Spruce Goose. Survived by his wife Bee and 3 sons. Carol Ann George, July 1941 to April 2014, private pilot. Born in Washington, D.C., graduated Biglerville High School in Pennsylvania. Met her future husband David, and shortly after moved to California. In 1969, the family moved to Oregon following Dave's career. Thoroughly enjoyed teaching word processing and computer classes at Chemeketa Community College. Retired from a career with the state of Oregon in 1999. Enjoyed many varied activities, including owning and piloting small airplanes, square dancing, and camping, and especially loved traveling, eventually trekking 5 continents. In 1992, she packed a small bag and moved to Japan for a year, spending time teaching and traveling. Music was her lifelong passion. She is survived by her children Lori, Daryl, Karen, and Fred, 14 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren, and 1 brother. Patrick C. McFadden, March 1922 to August 2014. Flyer. Born in Murfreesboro, Arkansas. Served in the U.S. Navy as a young man. Enjoyed flying, golfing, and spending time with his family. He had a great sense of humor, which he passed on to his children and grandchildren. He also liked going to Spirit Mountain Casino so that he could become the new owner of it. Well, we all know that didn't happen. But he can make anyone laugh, and he will be sorely missed. He's survived by 3 sons, 1 daughter, 2 stepsons, 4 stepdaughters, 28 grandchildren, and 31 great-grandchildren. Frederick Forrest Mentzer, April 1937, November 2014, Army aviator. Born in Sacramento. At a young age, moved with his mother and sister to Medford. Attended George Washington High School in San Francisco. Won the title of Champion Bay Area Swimmer in the mid-1950s. Enlisted in the Army after college. Had an exemplary career as a helicopter pilot, serving with the 281st Assault Helicopter Company in Vietnam. Instrumental in helping to establish the 281st AHCA group, which has brought this band of brothers together with friendship and remembrances at an annual reunion. Continued to hone his skills by taking various classes, especially advanced computer skills. He maintained the continence of a quiet man and was always willing to help. Survived by his wife Karen and 2 daughters, many beloved grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Robert Lloyd Pierce. January 1921, April 2014. Private pilot. Born in Island City, Oregon, and raised in Eastern Oregon on a wheat and sheep ranch. Bob was the grandson of Oregon Governor Walter Pierce. After attending OSU, he served in the U.S. Navy during World War II as a crew member on a plane out of Astoria, flying as far north as Dutch Harbor, Alaska. He worked for John Deere Corporation for 39 years. Waited until he was in his 50s to get back into flying. He loved buying old planes and restoring them, and building kit airplanes as well. He also restored John Deere tractors. Bob is survived by a son, 5 stepchildren, 13 grandchildren, and numerous great-grandchildren. Joseph G. Schonbachler. I had it right the first time. April 1929 to October 2014, private pilot. Born on the family farm on Crooked Finger near Scotts Mills, where he lived his entire life. Crooked Finger was another one I had to look up. Didn't believe it existed. Joe started working in the sawmills at age 16 when help was needed during World War II. And at age 19, he started logging. Following the war, he owned and operated several sawmills. Married Patricia in 1950. Enjoyed the opportunity to meet his father's family in Switzerland and his mother's family in Germany. When his German relatives came to America, he was delighted to show them his beautiful Oregon. His hobbies included flying, converting an old steam sawmill into a diesel operating sawmill, and restoring old tractors. Survived by his wife, 6 children, 17 grandchildren, and 12 great-grandchildren. James Joseph Sopp, January 1932 to January 2015, private pilot. Born in Portland, graduated Grant High School. Married the love of his life, Mary Ann, in 1952. Enlisted in the U.S. Navy during the Korean War, serving in the USS Rainier, an ammunition ship. Worked as an artist in the sign industry. With a passion for flying, he held a private pilot's license for over 60 years. A member of the Experimental Aircraft Association, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, and the Oregon Pilots Association. He received the Federal Aviation Administration's Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award in recognition for 50 years of safe flying. Highlights of Jim's career included 4 trips to Oshkosh for the Experimental Aircraft Association's annual Air Venture. In his 1961 M20B Mooney took the Outstanding Mooney Award for Contemporary Classic category, a tribute to the countless hours of work he put into his plane. And if you get a chance a little bit later, it's parked over there, and it's a beauty. It also has for sale sign on it, so if anybody's interested. He is survived by his wife, 3 daughters, 5 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson and 1 sister. It's with great pride that we honor and pay tribute to all of these Oregon aviators and the families that have supported them. Thank you all so much for your service and participation in Oregon aviation. In recognition of the military service members and veterans here today, we have included a medley of service themes, and we invite the veterans present, when your service anthem is played, to stand. And I ask that you remain standing until the final notes so that we can all acknowledge and recognize your service. Thank you. Thank you very much for your service. I'd like to read a few words from a poem, Flying, by Sarah Arvio. Once said to me, tonight, or was it day? Or was it the passage between the two? It's hard to remember, passing time zones. It is the moving resistance of the air as you hurtle too fast against the hours that stuns the cells and tissues of the brain. The white cumuli dreaming there below, warm fronts and cold fronts streaming through the sky, and mesmerizing rose and purple glow. Some want so much to cross, to go, somewhere, anywhere, and begin again. Now will the audience please rise for the playing of taps, performed by U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant and 2005 Central High School graduate, Danielle Rataco. You may be seated. Thank you, Staff Sergeant Rataco. The missing man formation that flew over was presented today by the Independence Air Park's own RV Air Force as an aerial salute to past aviators. As the formation approached the viewing area, the missing man pulled out to fly toward the west, representing the aviator's final flight into the sunset. Thank you very much for attending this 22nd annual Aviator Tribute and Memorial Day observance. Thank you to those who have graciously supported this tribute. And on behalf of the organizing committee, the event supporters, may you all have a meaningful Memorial Day. Thank you.